Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with saxophonist James Hughes and trumpeter Jimmy Smith of the jazz group Hughes-Smith Quintet. This band is a Detroit-based jazz outfit that performs original music with purpose, led by saxophonist Hughes and trumpeter Smith. Formed in the autumn of 2012 with the purpose of promoting their brand of Detroit be-bop, they were inspired by that grand Motor City jazz scene that was flourishing in the 50s and early 60s. So get to know these cats and dig this interview, my friends.
So, Jimmy, thank you for taking a minute out. I love the album. It's a great thrill to talk to you about the band and what you guys have been doing and about Motion.
Thank you. We're pretty proud of it.
You should be, without a doubt. Let's start off at the top here, and I'm going to ask you about Motion. Talk to me about this project. How do you feel about it?
We're very excited about it. You know, the band, we got together in late 2012, and this is, you can really hear James and I maturing as composers on this record. We kind of got away from the, like formulaic jazz compositions and kind of just, wrote what we heard more for this one.
So talk to me about how you guys came together. How did this band happen? Just kind of give me an idea.
God, in 2012, James and I have been working together. I've known him since I was 17. I'm 41 now, so we've been playing gigs together pretty much ever since we were teenagers. In 2012, we started working a lot as a horn section, and on the way to a lot of gigs, we're both talking about, this record we're going to put out, and, I'm going to put out my record, and it's going to be like this, and he wants to put out a record, and it's going to be like this, and probably about the fifth time we had the conversation, we realized we're talking about the same record. So we just kind of combined, our efforts and our funds, and, he got half of the tunes on the first record. This is Motion is the third record we put out. And, we went into the studio early 2013, and I think we knocked that whole record out in 3 sessions.
So the album is charting very well. How does that feel?
It felt great. We've been here in Detroit paying dues for a really long time as sidemen through our 20s and, well into our 30s. And then to put something together and see it grow, and kind of develop a fan base like this is very gratifying. It's the dream, if you will.
Yeah, without a doubt, which is why you're in it. So did you guys grow up in Detroit?
Yeah, we both grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. I grew up in Pontiac, Michigan, home of Pontiac Motors, and James grew up in Ferndale, which is kind of, Detroit, 8 Mile is in his backyard.
I know Ferndale well. I know some of the boroughs up there. So, yeah, I can visualize it, yeah, without a doubt. So what kind of jazz did you get into growing up, and how did you get the jazz bug?
God, I can remember the first time I heard, jazz on my radio. I had a friend his uncle was a jazz saxophone player. His uncle was mostly kind of a smooth jazz guy. My friend, his name was Kazzy. And he came over to my house one day, and his uncle had made him a mixtape of like different jazz people. And I remember on the mixtape, the first track on there was Clifford Brown's Daoud. And I heard that, and my mouth was on the floor. I thought it was so hip. And then, the next was Move by Miles Davis. There was some Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker on there, and I remember I copied the tape that day, and I think I wore that mixtape out on 3 different cassettes. So I was about 15 when I really got the jazz bug.
Very cool. That's how it works, man. I always love hearing about how tapes wear out. That's a feat in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Why the trumpet? Was it Miles? What inspired you to get on the trumpet?
Honestly, I was I grew up, I was very poor, came from a single-parent family, and I wanted to play the saxophone. You know, we went to band school rental night when I was in the 6th grade, and we couldn't afford the payment on the saxophone. So I picked up some other things, and I made a sound on the trumpet pretty easy. And I thought, oh, this might be cool. When I was young, I really didn't identify with anything. And I know by, like, the next summer, the summer after my 7th grade year, my mom would beg me to stop practicing. I was practicing 3 and 4 hours a day already.
Yeah.
I really identified with it. I really loved it right away.
The thing that's very key about your sound, it's very evident, is that you guys go for that Motor City jazz scene of the 50s and 60s. What was that scene like? Who were you kind of modeling yourself after?
Of course, am influenced by all the masters, you know. I mean, I Clifford Brown and Miles Davis and Lee Morgan, and I think I brushed my teeth to Freddie Hubbard all through college. The Detroit scene is very heavy into the be-bop tradition, you know. I mean, Donald Byrd comes from here, you know, Pepper Adams. I grew up in Pontiac, the home of the Jones Brothers. So, you know, all through school, me and kind of all the guys that are in my age bracket, we were checking out all those records, you know, Ron Carter and Curtis Fuller, like all the Detroit cats. So I don't know if it's something we went for or if it's just something that's in us. Because when we get together, that's just kind of how it comes out, you know?
The one thing, too, is that you guys have been around quite a bit. You guys have played at a lot of places. And I want to know, what trip, what venue, what place did you play that really made you grow as a band? Was there any place in particular?
You know, we've been fortunate enough to get in the rotation at the Dirty Dog Jazz Cafe in Grosse Pointe. We've had a couple residencies there that have went very well, and it's a place that if they book you in, you're there Wednesday through Saturday. And you know, Gretchen Ballad that owns Mac Avenue label, it's her club. And when we've been there, she's come out to hear us every night and has been very supportive. She just, you know, such a huge patron of jazz and just a beautiful person. But being there and having this, you know, the guys with us for 4 nights, 2 sets a night, and you know, like I said, they always take care of us so great. Like, we're able to really dig in and do our thing. I mean, we really feel at home there. And we have a monthly gig at Motor City Wine in Corktown in Detroit, and that's, you know, that's kind of our home base. I mean, those are places that have really been supportive in the Hughes Smith Quintet sound.
So you're on your 3rd album. You stayed busy. You perform. And I want to know, what's the future look like for you guys?
Well, we just got out of the studio on Sunday. We recorded another record with New York trombonist John Yao. So we're going to have the Hughes Smith Yao Sextet. That'll probably be out early next year. And, I mean, we're going to keep pushing and doing the thing. We all feel very fortunate here that things have kind of fallen into line for us to record and play our own music in public a lot. And the scene is very healthy in Detroit. I think this is a really good place to be.
So why do you love jazz?
Wow, that's a hard question. I mean, it's so much a part of what I do. You know, it's my identity's kind of wrapped up in it at this point. I've been doing it so long. You know, I mean, I love other kinds of music too, but every time I get to play, I kind of think of that feeling of like listening to that mixtape in my bedroom when I was 15. There's something about it that I really identify with. I can't really put it into words. It's more of a feeling.
When you guys play live or when someone buys your CD, what kind of feeling do you want them to have? What do you want the audience to take away from the experience that you give them?
I mean, we just want people to feel the music. You know, I think we have a unique take on things. You know, with kind of the Motown, we kind of talk about our music being like modern jazz with a Motown sensibility. I mean, I want people to listen to the harmonies and the compositions if that's the way they hear music. But if it's just someone on the street who is not a jazz fan, I think they can hear our record and they can feel it. Because it's accessible and all the tunes are listenable. I like it when the folks can feel the music.
I dig it. So everyone has a version of who you all are as a band. Your fans do, your family does, we do as music journalists and radio players. But who do you think you are? If you had to tell someone who you are as a band, how would you define who you are?
I think we've gotten to the point where we have our own little thing. We kind of speak, we definitely speak out of the jazz tradition and what's been played before this, but I kind of feel like we have our own unique little thing, like our own Hughes Smith Quintet sound. I mean, who we are is the Hughes Smith Quintet.
I like it. I like what you guys do. Thank you, Jimmy, for taking some time out. Thank you for the music, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking your time.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Detroit, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to James Hughes and Jimmy Smith for their music, and importing that Detroit sound. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, you can always go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.